So this, of course, is a very big tragedy. And, it's tough. It's very tough to have something like that happen. And then to go, of course, to Twitter, as one does, and to read comments and messages from people who are entirely unsympathetic. Or maybe they're sympathetic but totally don't get that this is a moment that should require or promote at least a little bit of reverence. Not 24 hours, not 12 hours. In some cases, not an hour after the shooting was announced or shown on the news, people already rushed to make clear their theological discrepancies, their theological issues with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. People rushed to say things like, and these are some of the ones that I replied to, I'm not trying to be insensitive to the situation, but I find it very important that we recognize that Mormons are not Christians, not even a denomination of it. The violence happening in the world should be addressed, ... Pray for them and for their repentance. Now is the time to draw closer to the Lord. If your reaction to families being trapped in a church, being burnt down, having, their fellow churchgoers gunned down, the elderly, women and children, fathers, husbands, if your response to that contains pray for them and their repentance, you've lost the plot entirely. And frankly, I just want to be clear about this. The people who went out and began to raise this big deal about the issue of whether or not Mormons are Christian, we're not actually members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We were all mourning the loss of life. It is an absolute fabrication to say that there was any kind of effort to be opportunistic about the tragedy in order to shoehorn our religious perspectives into the conversation. That was not the case. Luckily, there were a lot of people who did get the memo, who understood, the situation, the tenderness of it all, and who were able to refrain from, bringing up these autistic theological debates. But others did not. And one of the people who is most frustrating is Pastor Mark Driscoll, who, of course, was on the Charlie Kirk show yesterday or the day prior. I think wasn't it literally Sunday? When was he on the Charlie Kirk show? When was that? I think it was literally either yesterday or, it was yesterday. Yep. The day after the shooting, Pastor Mark Driscoll goes on social media, or goes on the Charlie Kirk show. But what has Pastor Mark Driscoll said about members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or Mormons? Well, here's a message. And of course, by the way, I hated this. Here's the message he put out as the situation was developing. The murder of innocent people is evil, no matter if they're Jewish, Muslim, Mormon, or Christian. I understand that maybe in its content, this is not a bad message. And I understand he's affirming his theological position. But he knows what he's doing. He knows that this is an effort to draw lines of theological distinction. He knows that he is promoting theological debate and argument by tweeting, no matter if they're Mormon or Christian. Here's what he said a couple weeks ago, prior to that last tweet, 2 weeks prior, at the response, this was actually a couple days after Charlie Kirk had died. This is what he posts on September 14th, just 2 weeks ago. There will be 0 Mormons in heaven. It is a demonic cult. A literal demon is on top of every Mormon building. And first of all, that's not even true. I think he's talking about the Angel Moroni, and the Angel Moroni is not on top of our meeting houses, you dolt. Here's the tweet that he posted a day prior regarding Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk's assassin. The assassin was a Mormon. This is not the same as Christianity. It is a demonic cult. Mormonism's Jesus is no closer to the Christ of the Bible than Islam's Jesus is. So, yeah. This is the guy that goes on the Charlie Kirk show the day, and I understand he was probably planned to be brought on since before the shooting happened. Nobody plans for that kind of shooting to occur. But it is that kind of bickering, it is that kind of insensitivity, it is that kind of terminally online religious speak that, frankly, needs to be combated. That's not okay. It is not okay to see families murdered and have your first response be some theological bickering. And it's so frustrating. Nobody doubts, and I said this on a space yesterday, nobody was doubting that you don't like or don't agree with Mormon theology. Your name is Pastor Mark Driscoll. Your name is Orthobro 1488. I don't know. Your name is Rad Trad Catholic. Nobody is surprised that you don't subscribe to LDS theology. It's in your name. Nobody benefits by you putting on the internet the fact that you personally don't believe Mormons are Christian. And doing that, frankly, is a way of creating a larger divide between the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and Christians in an effort to reduce the amount of human empathy that people feel for us. I almost said them, for us. That is the reason you do that. You do that in order to otherize the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And look, I know not everybody who watches this show is Mormon, but most of you guys have interacted with us. Most of you guys have interacted with missionaries. Tell me how many bad interactions you've had with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Tell me how many bad interactions you've had with missionaries or with members of the church. What, did they lace the cookies that they brought to your house? No, they didn't. You know what, in the entire Western world, you know what the most religious place is? You know what the most religious province is in the entire Western world? It is Utah. Utah has an over 44% weekly church attendance. No other province in the world competes. Not in Europe, not in America. Who gives the most charitable donations of a religious group? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and its members. Even outside of the 10% tithing that we pay as religious responsibility. Who are the most pro-social? Who have the highest birth rates, besides the Amish, maybe? Frankly, it's like, who's white? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There's so many people on Twitter who want to talk about, the big problem is that white people aren't having any kids. Yeah, well, you call the only white people having kids demons. So, I don't know if you're making the right enemies, pal. Why create those divisions? And this is the thing that I think is most important to say. If you ask somebody, describe to me, picture in your mind's eye, describe to me your ideal American, civic-minded, charitable, serviceable, kind, large family, conservative, pro-gun largely, church attending, sober, temperate. You ask somebody to define what an ideal American looks like, and you know who they describe? The average member or return missionary in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And everybody knows that. And everybody knows that. An attack on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, an attack on Mormons, is an attack on white people and on America. If you attack Mormons, you are attacking America and you are attacking white people by proxy. You want, that, by the way, you can even go more basic. Ask somebody to imagine the caricature of a white person. Who do they imagine? They imagine a Mormon. Kind, happy-go-lucky with a bunch of phrases like what the flip or fetch or anything like that. That's who they imagine. They imagine a Mormon. So I just wanted to go off about that, and I don't want to black pill too much. The majority of my friends did not do anything like that. The majority of the people I know, and of course you people in the chat, while it may be true, while you may believe that Mormons are not Christian. I know that the majority of you held your tongues and realized that a couple hours after, a mass shooting is probably not the best time to get autistic on Twitter about our theological differences, about the Nicene Creed or the Athanasian Creed. And guess what? And guess, by the way, what happens? You've got this murderer. You've got a murderer who goes and shoots up because, I don't know, because he got dumped by his Mormon girlfriend, or because he thinks that the church is the Antichrist, which, by the way, is exactly what Mark Driscoll was saying. Oh, it's a demon-possessed cult. Oh, they're the Antichrist. How different is what Mr. Sanford and Mr. Driscoll, how different is what they were saying? It's really not. It's really not. Yet Mark Driscoll is never going to take any kind of fault for what he said on Twitter, for how that rhetoric might have even inspired Mr. Sanford to commit this mass shooting. He'll never say that. No, he wouldn't. Despite the similarities. It's just frustrating. But you know what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints did? Yes, there's GoFundMes for the families who lost, family members in the shooting and in the fire. But you know what the church did? You know what its members did? Its members created a GoFundMe account for the widow of the shooter. Latter-day Saints in Michigan created a GoFundMe for the shooter's widow because we understand that she is also grieving. And that they had a young son with a debilitating illness, and that she is going to need some help too because she no longer has a provider in her family. Because of evil rhetoric, and because of Satan. And I just want to make clear, this was not an attack on all of Christianity. This was not even an attack on white people, as some people in my comments tried to say. This was an attack, a deliberate attack on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and its members. It was nothing short of that. Admittedly, if you attack the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you're attacking white people and Christians. That's who you're attacking. Those are your victims. But they were not targeted because they were white. The shooter was white. They were not targeted because they were Christian. The shooter was likely Christian, or was at least Christian enough to talk about how they're the Antichrist and they shouldn't be supported. He had his theological positions. So just be very honest when you talk about why that shooting occurred. It didn't happen because of leftism or because of white people or because of anything else. It happened because they were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.